Hello and welcome to the aForm Show, the premier podcast for all things architecture and design across the MENA region. Welcome to your tribe. Today's episode is supported by SkyStruct, the groundbreaking construction and project management solution that's absolutely turning heads in the industry. They are bringing together architects, engineers, project managers, procurement, and essentially any stakeholder onto one singular platform. Yes, clients are included. SkyStruct is genuinely changing the game. Its tailored modules for construction management, inventory, labor, cost management help streamline the chaos of construction projects. They are rolling out very soon in Dubai, but you as a listener can get in early. Drop us an email at hello@aform.studio and find out how SkyStruct is the future, and it is here today. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. This week we are joined by Shiam Shibl, interior designer at DLR Group Middle East. Shiam has been involved with many of the most cutting-edge projects across the MENA region, and she comes with a unique approach to the fascinating world of interior design. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right. Welcome to the show, Shiam.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
No, it's awesome. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for giving us your time. I typically like to start these episodes by looking back. And in your case, we just were speaking off air. For those listening to the show, know that I studied architecture at CUD. Turns out, Shiam studied interior design at AUD. And if you don't know what that means and why we're laughing, you have not studied in this wonderful city. Anyway, all jokes aside, I want to ask you, Shiam, as we start out. Interior design is a field where I feel a lot of people reach it through different mediums, inspirations, events in their life, etc., etc. So I want to know for you, how did you find interior design? Was there a moment in your life where you were like, yep, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to study?
Oh, well, it definitely went through like a different process throughout my life. So I always really appreciated art in general. So I started drawing, painting, and just learning more about art. And then I actually did meet my friend's mom, who was an interior designer, and how she would design these spaces and actually put up her own artwork in her own houses and incorporate that within design. And I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, wow, this actually, can be much bigger than just art.
Yep.
So, and that's how I started looking more into interior design, and I found all these different layers to it. So it's not just decorating, it's not just art, it's interior architecture, it's space planning, it's coordinating. You also learn a lot about what the engineers do. It's all interlinked. It's this very broad profession, and you will never stop learning. And this is what I found myself doing. This is what I want to do. This is I found something that I know I would never get bored doing because I'm learning something new each day.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. And if I may ask, I'm always intrigued by professionals who study here, like myself, right? The city of Dubai is a very unique place to be studying interior design and architecture, in the sense that pretty much anything is possible, right?
Exactly.
If you think about it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were to study in, say, other universities, if you look at, say, the Bartlett in the UK or, the GSD, things like that, it's a much more different approach to academia and what you actually learn.
True.
So I want to understand from your experience of studying here, anything that kind of comes to mind where you're like, yep, because I learned that, I think I'm a pretty established, or, I learned a key lesson in university because of this particular incident or anything like this?
So are you asking about how it relates to the demographic and the upbringing of the city?
Yeah, sure.
Well, it's definitely different in each region. And while studying here, we always consider who we're designing for, even as students. They're already preparing us for that. So yeah, it's already kind of embedded in our minds that we're designing within this region as we're studying.
Right.
So I feel like that definitely had a good preparation to working in this region, because it also helps us consider the materials that we're using, because obviously in other regions they're focused on different kinds of materials.
Yeah, makes sense. I think you touched upon something quite interesting about materials, because I did want to ask you that. Kind of selfishly as an architect, I suppose I'm always like, man, these interior designers always know what's up with materials. There are these things which just come out of nowhere. And I guess we as architects find out much, 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 much later. So,
interesting.
So just as a quick side note, anything in particular which you're finding really interesting or you've come across in one of your projects, any type of material?
Oh, that's endless. There's with every project I work on, we're always coming across really interesting materials, because every time we reach out to a different supplier, every time we start working on a different project, we're inspired differently, and we end up coming across all types of things. And then it's not just in terms of textures, also in terms of the functionality and how the product is, like some products are like flexible, like bendable, like in terms of materials, and then you have the really durable, sustainable products as well, and you have to see how it suits each project. And it's an endless world of materials, to be honest, and the colors also, and how now technology, how they can imitate stones and the natural materials into synthetic materials. It's also very impressive, and every day, we're learning something new.
I suppose with architecture it's a bit more limited, right? We don't really have a lot of things to consider for materials. But interesting. Okay. So taking a step back again, I want to understand from you, because a lot of our listeners are kind of, fresh graduates and, people maybe just starting out their career and things like this. So for them, if they're listening in, if you could share any tips or words of advice in terms of, hey, I did what you did. I'm a little bit ahead of you. I did this and this and it helped, or I learned about this and this and it sort of helped the journey along. Anything that you could share with them?
Yeah, definitely. Well, linking it to my personal experience, by nature, I'm a shy person, but I've learned that I need to leave that at home. I can't take it with me to work, because otherwise I won't put myself out there. I won't show my capabilities. And I think it's very important to stay true to yourself, in a sense of be authentic and show the people that you're working with what you're actually capable of, your ideas, so they can see your value and actually find that potential in you, so they can teach you, because you need to show them that you want to learn and you have all this knowledge that you want to build on. Because we need to also remember and keep in mind that, even though we're fresh graduates, we don't know as much, but we do have something to offer. So it's good to show that to the people that you're working with, and always ask questions. It's all about being true to yourself, right? If you want to learn, you will ask. So don't hold back, because otherwise you'll never grow.
Okay. True. I kind of want to drill down a bit more and get a bit more tactical with it, right? Because I get asked this question very often.
Right.
And my answer tends to put off a lot of fresh graduates, because I say the same thing. But then I also say that may mean that, if you've given 10 tasks to do, you probably want to figure out task 11 and 12 and do that. And then show that, hey, listen, I kind of went the extra mile and I did tasks 11 and 12. What do you think about it? Et cetera, et cetera. And that keeps coming off to fresh graduates as, oh, but that means I got to work more. That means I got to, do the extra bit. And I keep telling them that, yes, maybe initially, but it's not forever. I mean, at some point in your career, you won't have to do that. But I keep getting this sort of, pushback against that. No, I shouldn't have to do that. I should be valued for what I do, in a weird sense.
So the thing is, as a fresh graduate, right, you do have to prove yourself. That is the reality, because they don't know you. They don't know what you're capable of yet. You still don't have a professional portfolio. So in order for you to prove that you're worthy, yes, you do have to take that extra mile, at least in the beginning. You need to show them what you're capable of, in terms of handling pressure, in terms of how much you can do within a limited time. It's not just about, valuing you for just who you are and as a designer. It's more about your personality. Are you willing? Do you have that in you to push? Do you have that attitude? Do you have that enthusiasm to work? And that itself is honestly one of the main things that I feel companies look for in fresh graduates is their enthusiasm, because we do understand that, they have a lot to learn. We understand that. But it's more about like, how much do you want to learn? How much do you want to be here? And how much are you willing to give to show that you want this? And from there, as you start growing, it depends obviously from project to project how much you push, but it's all about the attitude.
True. Again, this is something which I try to drill back home with them as well, saying that I think, like you rightly put, project to project, it always varies, right? There are some projects which just sail through surprisingly.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, that happened.
That's rare. How does that feel like?
Yeah. Believe it or not, it has happened a couple of times wherein everything was fine. There was no value engineering. There was, everything was accepted. Bills were paid and life went on. That happens.
Oh, that's nice. It's not just a fantasy. Okay, that will come true someday. That's good to know.
It does happen. And then, of course, there are some projects where you're like, please put an end to this, at some point. So I keep telling fresh grads that, this is a reality of our industry, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And as much as I would like to make that pain go away, I don't know how. I mean, I've spoken to many people who obviously have very utopian solutions to this, that, we should charge for this and we should pay this and we should do this. But the reality of it is, I think we're very far away from that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So away from that doom and gloom, project pressure obviously ebbs and flows with every project. And there are some which are really chilled out and there are some which are really full on pressure from day one.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And I guess my next question to you would be, from an interior design point of view, right? You mentioned a while back that, you also during your studies were looking at engineering, and I'm assuming that is a lot to do with MEP and things like this. Anything which you have found of late, which is kind of cool in terms of, hey, you can actually design something which is a ceiling which is, maybe only 300 mm deep or something with this duct system or anything like this? I guess what I'm asking is, from an interior design point of view, you probably get given engineering drawings, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And once you do that, once you start designing RCPs,
right?
Once you start designing RCPs, anything which you've come across as an interesting design detail when it comes to, kind of hiding ducts or exposing a bit of light or having natural ventilation of some kind, anything like this?
Well, there are different solutions to all the coordination process that have been going on with different kinds of consultants, right? So structure, MEP, lighting, and so on. It all impacts design, of course. So I find myself, for example, if there's a column sticking out of the wall and I don't want it as part of my space, it inspires me to create a specific kind of paneling to cover it up and kind of like use that shape also as inspiration, like the shape of the column itself. And also with like specific ducting, and sometimes even designers like appreciate that in a sense where they do an exposed ceiling. So they kind of embrace the MEP within their design. So there are so many different ways. There's concealing the design, there's exposing MEP, and there's also exposing columns, right? Where we use that as an element, as a feature element as well. We don't always hide it. So it inspires us in both ways. Sometimes we want to expose it and like create it as a feature element, and other ways we were inspired to conceal it in other feature ways actually as well. Yeah. So it does inspire our design. It's all interlinked somehow.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Another question that I have is, this is something which I ask, I think, most interior designers, because I'd like to see how they deal with this problem, right? If I give you now that same example that you're talking about, let's say you have a column sticking out of a wall, you want to clad it with timber, for example.
Sure.
Right? And you need some kind of a curved timber panel, right? Which is not a standard thing, I'm assuming. I'm assuming it's not a standard thing. And you don't really have a reference of it. You've not worked with this material before. So how do you go about finding out about this material? How do you go about figuring out how it's installed, what the spec is? Do you have a sort of process that you go through?
Yeah, this is, I wouldn't call it a struggle or a challenge. It's more of like an adventure.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it is an adventure. So we do somehow also get carried away with a lot of our designs, and we always want to find a solution of how to make it happen. So we do reach out to different kinds of suppliers that we know that are known for maybe paneling or bespoke items and materials. And then we have this conversation with them. We show them our design. We see what they're capable of doing. Sometimes they can achieve what we're actually aiming for, and other times they can provide us with alternative solutions that might somehow speak the same language. And based on budget and based on what's the most practical solution, that's how we kind of deviate or settle for the specific solution that we're provided. And also other times we can completely disregard suppliers and go to more contractual solution, as in we think about how we can build that joinery.
Right.
So we can look up references or look up some shop drawings of similar items and kind of, go back and forth, study the design and create it ourselves as a joinery. So many different possibilities, but me personally, I would go directly to suppliers.
Right.
That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Just to ensure that, there are no steps being missed or hidden. And it's a good collaboration as well with suppliers to get them involved in the project.
True. And I would assume that in some cases, you actually find out that there is not only a solution, but there's actually a better or a perfect solution.
Exactly.
Which you never knew probably existed.
Exactly. You get exposed to more possibilities as well. And sometimes just by going out there and finding a solution to what you already have, you end up actually enhancing the design by finding, more ideas. And there are a lot of things out there that you haven't seen before. So it's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've had that experience with a couple of suppliers here. Lutron is probably one that comes to mind off late. Shout out to Lutron if you're listening. But yeah, I mean, I think designers kind of fall into this pit of maybe overcomplicating things at times, and then you realize that there's actually just I don't need to do this, and this. I can just be like, there's a system already for it. I can just use that.
Yeah, that's so true. We do end up overcomplicating things at times, like, what did I just design? How am I going to make this happen now? But if you just ask around and actually find the right sources, it can even be better.
Yeah. True. All right. Interesting. Another question I want to ask you, again, this is purely architect to interior designer. So forgive my ignorance if I sound like, what is he talking about? I have no idea. So there's a reason for that. Furniture design is a topic which is of big interest to me because I have of late been bitten by the furniture bug.
Okay.
In one of our projects, I was given the opportunity to design a coffee table and a dining table. And ever since then, I'm now hooked. But I feel like the way that I do it is probably the long-winded, difficult way because it involves a lot of sketches, it involves a lot of mock-ups, it involves contractors telling me, hey, you can't really bend 1 millimeter of stainless steel without a joint showing, things like this. So as someone who's studied interior design, you obviously have been exposed to a lot of ergonomics and standards and how, furniture should operate and clear spacing and so on.
Yeah.
So I guess the question to you would be, if someone came to you and said, hey, Shiam, we want you to design a sofa, or we want you to design a lounge chair, for example. In your mind, what's the kind of process you're going to go through? Do you start off with, I already have an idea? Or do you kind of iterate through sketches and then create mock-ups? What would be your workflow?
Yeah, definitely. There's going to be the phase of research and sketches and also looking up furniture drawings as well, existing furniture shop drawings to use them as reference just to make sure that what I'm designing is in fact making sense, right? It's always good to have a reference of something existing.
Right.
because that helps you like make your design more practical in a sense. So yeah, it goes through like a full process where first of all, okay, in my head, what kind of idea am I looking for? What's my inspiration? And then based on that, I start building on it. Sketches, okay, what kind of fabric, what kind of wood, what kind of, and you get samples, you put them together, you see what works best with each other. And then when you take it to actually drawing the item, so I'm not like 100% amazing at shop drawings because I haven't been exposed to it as much. So I do need to do a lot of research, for example. So also asking my colleagues and so on. So yeah, it depends on how experienced you are with the specific exercise, let's say. From there, you just, you build on it. And yeah, mock-ups, definitely. You need to see it for yourself. You need to test the item. And then from there, you finalize your piece and voila.
Voila, there it is. All right, so I'm not too far off.
No, just don't forget the samples because seeing the materials and like options and options and options, that's, that really helps you it helps you visualize your vision a little bit better.
100%. A big learning for me actually out of that entire experience was piping and stitching, which
it's all in the details.
Which I was like, what? This is a thing? People design this?
Yes. Yes, it's all in the details actually. Like you wouldn't realize how big of a difference just the detail of a stitch can just transform the furniture
100%.
piece.
And even the material itself, like I found if you were to, now I'm getting a bit too technical, but it was this sort of, I forget the name, but let's just say some kind of a cotton fabric, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stretched over this foam, it just looked different in the light when it was stretched over and kind of like pressure stitched or whatever it was at the bottom, whereas just being like a loose fabric, which I found was like insane. Like how can the same material, just by it being stretched over something, looks, different? And yeah, the minute then you start adding, just a different tone of stitching material,
Mm-hmm.
like if you say have a beige and then you have like a brown stitch on top of it, suddenly looks so different.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's all in the details. It's insane how powerful details are, like, and the way they impact the overall design. It needs to be considered whether it's in furniture or in an overall space. Yeah, details do really make a difference. That's true.
Yeah. And again, now, like I've become like that, like the designer who walks into the space and then I'm like, hey, yo, check out that piping detail, man. Drives my friends crazy.
Are you thinking switching to interior design now?
I just might. No, to be honest, for me, it's, I think I fall in that bracket where I suppose conventionally I've been in the master plan architecture sort of space.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of those principles can be translated into interior design as well, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Is it a direct crossover? No, there's a big learning curve on both sides. But I think if you're a passionate enough designer, I think you can overcome that learning curve.
Exactly.
I feel. A good example about this whole furniture design thing is that most of the iconic chairs that I know have been designed by architects.
Yeah.
Kind of like Barcelona chair, Eames chair, these were all kind of architects that didn't stop at architecture. They went further and further and further and said, we're going to go down right to the furniture and design that too.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that is possible.
Yeah, I feel like design overall, like, because the kind of passion that people have for design is, it speaks the same language. So it's how we interpret them within interior design or architecture, master planning. There's also fashion. So you feel like they all have the same foundation, I guess, within the designers, like how we approach design. It's just a matter of learning the different skills and different approach to that specific industry, let's say, or the discipline.
True.
But like you said, if you have that passion for design, then you just need to kind of learn, research, study, and then you'll find yourself capable of,
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
So I kind of now have to ask, right? Having had this conversation with you, you come off as a very passionate designer, right?
I
And
would think so.
what I like to ask passionate designers is a bit of a controversial question, right?
Okay.
So you can feel free not to answer.
Mm.
But in my opinion, there are quite a lot of people that come to me and, show me samples of architecture, right? And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. But then most times I kind of just raise an eyebrow saying, yeah, it's not the best
Mhm.
because of X, Y, and Z. And I break it down. It's not a matter of opinion. I say, because of this and this and this and this and this.
Mhm.
So I guess my question to you is, since you've obviously, worked on more than one project
Mhm.
and you've delivered quite a few projects, obviously designed a lot more.
Mhm.
From what you can see around the city of Dubai, let's keep it a bit isolated, right?
Okay.
In your opinion, what do you think interior designers are not quite getting right? What is the one thing which you kind of look at everything and you're like, I think if they just looked at this or thought about this or, researched this or whatever it is, right?
Right.
That one thing which would kind of elevate everyone's work, if there is such a thing.
I have been noticing something. Lighting.
Lighting.
Yeah. So there is no specific example that I have in my mind, but I have been noticing that. And the reason why I remember it very clearly is because it's a feeling, right? And lighting is very crucial to design, and they're very heavily integrated because interior design is all about how you feel within a space, right? And that doesn't only include the materials and the colors and the furniture. It also includes lighting. And I feel that a lot of the times in the spaces that I've visited, it's been like an aftertouch or afterthought. Sorry, that's what you call it. And it's just like a last minute thing. It's just put on there. It's not really like considered to fit well within the design and create that experience that the designers worked so hard for to achieve, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what went wrong there. I don't know if it's the coordination. I don't know if maybe they didn't hire a lighting designer and it was just put in there by contractors or interior designers that are not well experienced. Because I feel like lighting design is actually complex and not any designer can do lighting design. There needs to be some sort of understanding and coordination. So I feel like, lighting has not been well considered in a lot of areas in this region. And it's quite sad actually, because it's the cherry on top, right? Like, it needs to complete the whole space.
100%. We, on the architecture side, have the same problem because when it comes to outdoor spaces, facade lighting, I mean, it can completely change what a building looks like. And I'm assuming 10 times more with an interior space, right? I think the solution or rather the issue that most projects have is that when it comes down to budget, right?
Right.
Lighting typically, along with home automation or general automation, kind of gets looked at the absolute last, saying that, we need interiors, yes. We need good FF&E, yes. We need, finishes, yes. And by the time they reach lighting, you're like, oops, budget's over, sorry. And, it kind of gets looked away or just kind of, kicked further down the road to, we'll deal with it on site, or we'll have a contractor give us a spec, which is the worst thing that you can do.
Exactly. And I feel like that's such a shame because it completely changes the design, like you said.
Yeah.
Like, after all this hard work, and the whole idea with design is that you're trying to create an experience, you're trying to create a feeling, right?
Yeah.
So it all needs to be integrated. Everything needs to be coordinated and considered. Otherwise, it's just incomplete.
True. And funnily enough, this is going to sound like such a big plug and a shout out, but we are recording this episode at Counterculture, which is by Lights and Lives. And if you haven't heard of Lights and Lives, you should definitely look them up. I personally have worked with them on a lot of projects and they solve this problem, right? Because we typically bring them on really early in the concept stage, which is actually maybe another point of friction, right? Because a lot of other lighting designers, when you bring them on too early on the project, they don't really have a lot to do if you think about it.
Yeah.
right? Because they can only really get involved once you have a concept and once you sort of start your schematic and things like this. But sometimes bringing them on too early might also be a problem, because then they're like, all right, we're just twiddling our thumbs and waiting. What do you want from us?
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting thing that you mentioned here, because I feel that also relates to interior designers when they're brought on a project as well.
Exactly.
So there's this like kind of domino effect that affects all the disciplines depending on when they're being brought on the project.
Yeah.
So for example, interior designers, when they're brought on too late,
Yes.
You find yourself...
You can't really work with anything.
Yeah, it's like, wait, this just doesn't work with the ID. Like, we need to go back to the architects. We need to go back to the structure or the MEP. The ceiling is too low. The ceiling is too high. Or this column is protruding in a very, like,
unpleasing way.
Exactly. So I feel like all that needs to be, coordinated at an early stage, so it doesn't create a board of works later. And I feel like, lighting, it depends also on the kind of project, I would say. So some judgment needs to be properly, considered with which discipline comes at which time, because that does influence and impact the process of the entire project. You don't want anyone to redo their work or change their entire design because one discipline said this doesn't work for me.
Exactly.
So it needs to... It's a tricky process.
Yeah, the funny thing about lighting, which again I found out recently, is people think that it's, let's just hang a few lights and and we'll be done.
Yeah.
But and I must admit, a couple of years back, that is what I thought as well. I'm like, yeah, it's lights. What's the big deal? But after a couple of projects in this sort of realm, I've realized that A, not just lighting, B, so many types of fixtures, which require so many types of drivers, which then need to be concealed. C, to actually get the value out of those, you actually need to have some kind of automation, which means you need to start thinking about, DALI fixtures or, having some kind of automation scheme where you create scenes. And from there, you then need to look at, but if I'm going to do circuitry for these scenes, I actually need to loop X, Y, and Z lights separately, which means I might need to have additional sleeves running in different locations. And all of a sudden, you're tearing up your entire ceiling just for something as simple as lights.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who thinks it's just about hanging some lights, it's not really.
No, not at all. So I feel like they need to be brought on somewhat early because, like I said, it's all about coordination and finding that perfect, or at least a smooth process.
I mean, you're never really going to get 100% of things right all the time. There's always going to be, snags, quite literally, right? That you have to snag and get out. But the least amount, the better.
Yeah, exactly. Like what you can avoid.
Yeah.
That would be, reasonable.
Okay. Interesting. All right. As we sort of wind down the episode, I do have one topic to again get your opinion on because, this is your world, about interior design, which is this concept of quiet luxury, right? It is something which I have sort of been in because, as we mentioned off air, on our side with architecture, I am sort of in that residential hospitality crossover area, so to speak. And from what I can see with the briefs that we're getting, whether it's conscious or not, I feel like a lot of them are kind of going down this route, wherein it's much more about toned down materials and more about the quality of the materials and more about having, a relatively neutral experience rather than, ultra maximalist in your face, so to speak.
Right.
But I feel this might just be my insight, my opinion. Is this something which you're seeing as well?
I am, especially also because, like I mentioned earlier off air, that we also work a lot with the hospitality and residential projects. And we feel that even though in some projects, depending on the brief, depending on the client, we do have that bold approach where we're trying to kind of set a statement and brand identity. But in many other cases, we do find ourselves also going down that road of quiet luxury. And I feel like it is trending, and I do see it a lot happening now, especially with hospitality and residential, because we feel like we're trying to kind of suit the space with as many users as possible, especially like international users, if it's a hospitality project, for example. So it relates to all kinds of, demographic, and, it has that, how do you call it?
Like a universal appeal.
Exactly. Yeah. And at the same time, it's also timeless. So, and when a design is timeless, I feel like it's more sustainable for the project, in the sense of they don't need to rebrand or like change. Like, it keeps it alive for a longer period of time. And mentioning also the quality of the materials, like you said, it's all about just ensuring a good quality, and it also somewhat provides that luxury feeling without you even like seeing it. You feel it. So I feel like in most cases, also being more specific with hospitality and residential, in most cases you want to sell the experience, and within that experience it's the feeling, and within that feeling it's all about those materials and the hidden details, and just making sure that no one is uncomfortable or unfamiliar with that kind of design. So, but also being smart enough to not make it boring, of course. So
True.
There's always that balance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel I have been seeing it a lot now, and I have been implementing that style as well to many of the projects that I've been working on, with the tweaks depending on the brief, of course, and the kind of project. But yeah, no, quiet luxury is, trending, and it makes sense, to be honest. It is a timeless approach, and it's very suitable for, the most part.
Makes sense. I suppose my only fear with the entire, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all for it, right? My only fear with it is it seems to be, at least in my opinion, it seems to be a trend which a lot of developers are kind of getting on board with, because it probably makes, the room more leasable, or makes the property more sellable in terms of, the fact that it's so universal in a sense.
Exactly.
And again, I see the logic for that. No problem. I'm just concerned about the sort of long-term effects that it has. So I've also now been thinking that if you were to complete a project, which is along the lines of quiet luxury, fairly minimal, let's say beige and earth tones for your furniture, for your finishes, etc., come 4 to 5 years later, and again, this is just a thought, right? Is it possible, just from a FF&E point of view, right? If you were to reupholster sofas, if you were to add a new layer of pops of color and so on and so forth, can that evolve into something else? Or once you're committed down the quiet luxury route, you have to like stay down that route entirely? Is that possible to evolve it later on?
Yeah, of course it's possible. I feel that, there's renovation. So when you renovate a space, you can do wonders with it.
Yeah.
So I guess it all depends on the person who wants to change the space. How much do they want to change?
Exactly. So I think my question is more around not so much renovation, because renovation would imply that, the entire property is closed down and renovation happens. So this would be something more high level, or something more on the surface.
Okay.
Is something like that possible?
So you would think like, let's say not touching walls or ceilings, we're just touching furniture, maybe light. Yeah.
Or loose furniture. Loose furniture, carpets, rugs, decor, like around that realm.
Yeah, I would say you can definitely still transform it. Like, because also you have endless possibilities with FF&E, right? Like you can get huge paintings, or very like, bold kind of paintings, and like, and the rugs as well, like, not to mention. So curtains, rugs, artworks, and FF&E, that all on its own can create the identity within the space. So if you're just changing furniture, it will definitely create an impact and transform the entire design style. You know, like you can have the quiet luxury as your canvas and then you build on that and that might turn it into something else completely. Like I said earlier, like possibilities are endless and
Right.
yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So then that's not too bad of a situation, because that is my worry, right? Because I mean, I suppose with residential there is some level of ownership, so it probably won't go through a lot of change over its life. But something like hospitality, I mean, most interiors have a life of 2 years, 3 years maybe, and typically after that it kind of goes through a complete sort of gutting, and there's a new entire concept that's brought in. So I'm kind of thinking, especially for the higher end brands, if they were to commit to a high capex initially, go down the route of quiet luxury, wherein your base finishes are really, really high end, right? Like 20-year life kind of thing. But then you can kind of, through FF&E every year, even if you wanted, keep changing concepts internally.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's a more sustainable way to look at it. And from a operation point of view, you're not really shutting down your property. But again, like in my mind, it seems like, oh, that's you're thinking of the perfect world, and that doesn't exist.
No, but that's really, yeah, that's true. Especially because like with quiet luxury, like you said, because it's all about the quality of the materials, right? It's enduring, and because it's kind of simple, it can create a canvas to the space. And like I mentioned earlier, it's timeless. So just with maintaining like a very enduring and timeless canvas and base, yeah, you can kind of then like play around with everything in between, it would suit everything. Yeah, you do have some limitations, of course, with like that limitation of not being able to, let's say, renovate walls and ceilings and floors, but still possibilities are definitely endless. Like FF&E does have like a huge impact on the design. It's kind of the heart of the space.
True. And again, kind of linking back to what we spoke about earlier, right? Lighting can also play quite a significant role. If you have the right type of fixtures in place, what I mean by that is, a spotlight is not just a spotlight with adjustable beam angles, a spotlight which can be replaced without the actual fixture, coming out of the ceiling. And that if it is, something that can be automated, all of a sudden you can very quickly change a few fixtures, do a couple of new scenes with your new FF&E, and boom, you have a new space.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, it's all about, I think, the choices that you make from the beginning of the project and how it influences the project on the long term, which also brings us to sustainability. Are you using the right products and the right materials that are sustainable for this project?
Gotcha.
It's not just about environment. Yes, of course it is, but it's also economical. So how do we make the right selections for the better of the project long term?
Gotcha.
We shouldn't ever think of this as something temporary, even if the concept changes. These are still materials. These are still spaces that affect the well-being and people in general.
Gotcha. All right. Okay. That is a thought I've been kind of wrangling with off late. So it's good to get some clarity on it. Yeah. I'm like, it is possible. I'm going to push this down clients' throats now. They're like, quite luxury, man, with FF&E every year. Yo, welcome. This is what you got to do. Jokes aside, this has obviously been a very enlightening conversation for myself specifically, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners would agree. As a closing tradition on the show, we have something called the aForm tradition, which is basically a question that's been asked by a previous guest, not knowing who the next guest is. Oh. You don't know who asked the question. They don't know who's going to receive the question. Okay. So it's completely random. Sometimes it's silly. Sometimes it's quite a challenge, and we break the episode, go for a coffee, come back, and then answer the question. So I'm hoping today's question is fairly okay.
Okay.
Oh, it's actually quite a fun one. Okay. So the question is, I'm sure this is an interior designer that's asked this question.
Okay.
So I think you're fairly okay. So be honest, full stop.
No. I'm already scared.
As an interior designer, when you walk into a space, what do you look at the first and what impresses you? I'm assuming that can be any space.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it could be, it could be anything really. Anything that comes to mind?
Oh my God.
You can take a while.
I think I might need to take a while,
Yeah,
actually.
sure,
I need to imagine myself walking in spaces and just reliving these moments. So,
yeah, I got my answer. I'll go after you though, but I got my answer.
What? That was quick. The thing is, as an interior designer, right, it's a bit like more complicated in my head because I'm an overthinker as well. And I'm an interior designer. So I'm like, wait. What am I looking at first? I don't know. Am I looking at the right thing? I don't know.
I don't suppose there's a right thing, right? I mean, I think every interior designer would look at something different, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay, why do you think maybe I'll go with my answer?
Yes. Okay.
Right. It's my answer. And this is an honest answer. Don't judge me for it. My answer is invariably every space has a washroom.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. I always look for the washrooms and yes.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. Okay, fine. I'll let you take my answer.
No. That's not my answer. Go ahead. Go ahead. I have a different answer.
And there's a reason for it, right? The reason is that washrooms, in my opinion, right? Washrooms are the one space where invariably the experience is quite isolated, so to speak. Mm-hmm. If you were to look at, say, washroom cubicles or things like that. And to me, if an end user is going to be in that space isolated completely, meaning they literally have time to look around and whatever, that to me should be one of your most well-designed spaces, if not the most well-designed space.
Yes.
And then, even things like the way that your vanity is set up. I have certain OCDs, like water splashing out of wash basin is one of them. Mm-hmm. So I look for things like that, and that's what I judge. That's what I judge on. I don't know if it's the right thing to do, because I suppose
it's not right or wrong. It's not right or wrong, but I get it. It does make sense.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna build on your answer because I do relate to that, especially when, let's say, I'm looking for a new apartment or I'm staying in a hotel room, for example. The first thing I look at is the washroom, and I'm not sure why, but it impacts, like, I don't know, like my choice of that apartment, for example.
100%.
So, yeah, no, I can definitely understand why you would say that.
Yeah, because in my mind at least, I think that the washroom is probably the most minimum effort given in that space. Mm-hmm. And therefore, everything else is probably better than that. Mm-hmm. And if the washroom is really bad, I'm assuming the rest of the space is going to be a little bit better, but still quite bad.
Right. And like, you always want to make, like, at least like psychologically, the washroom needs to be clean, right? So if it's not pretty, how is it not clean?
Exactly. So yeah, that would be my answer.
No, I can see that. Okay, I'm going to be annoying and give like different answers for different spaces.
Sure, go for it.
I guess it depends, right? Because let's say if I'm walking into a mall, I don't know why, but for some reason I always notice the floor. I don't know why. I guess it's because when I've worked on retail spaces, I've always wanted to focus on the flooring as the main element, because that's the biggest part of the mall, right? And that's where
it is quite a large skin.
Design.
Sure.
Yes, exactly. That's what you can call it. So for some reason, I always look at the flooring in malls because I want to see how or large spaces in general, even hotel lobbies, I always look at the floor because it's a very like subtle way of influencing the design experience. And I never noticed it on a conscious level till I became a designer.
It's very true.
Because whenever I try to design a space, I always look at the floor of the space and I'm like, okay, this is, the base. It needs to, speak. It needs to speak for the design. So, so I think one of the reasons why I look at flooring is because I'm trying to get inspired. So that's in large spaces. And like I said, in rooms and apartments, I do look at the bathroom as well, the finishes of the bathroom and overall design, actually, not just finishes. But yeah, and then the third answer would be something I already mentioned earlier, the lighting of the space, especially if it's really bad or really nice, it is the first thing I look at. If it's average, I barely notice it, to be honest. Like if it's something just, hidden
generic
within. Generic, exactly. But if it's really bad or really nice, it it's definitely the first thing I notice. So that's why my answer depends on the spaces that I walk into.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm actually really blown away how I've never really noticed mall floors. And I have done a few malls. I feel like I need to go back to them and look at the floor. No, I think that's really interesting, right? Because the floor is one thing which I suppose you could very easily over-design it and then it becomes overkill.
Yeah.
But then if you just kind of put like a flat sort of 90 by 90 down, I suppose that's quite boring also. So there's a very fine line as to how much you design it and don't over-design it. Interesting.
Yeah. I'm still figuring that out as I go, because with every project, like I said, everything is different, right? And you want to speak a different language with your design. Like sometimes you want the ceiling to scream the design, but sometimes you want the floor. But how do you do that? So I think it also depends on where I'm at with my projects and my inspiration.
True.
And that's how I start noticing, like if I'm even noticing the floor as the first thing or the ceiling. I think it all depends on where my brain is at, like during that time in my career or my life,
100%. Yeah.
So yeah,
that's true. I mean, I had a whole travertine phase. Like I remember that distinctively. I would literally I would stop waiters in a restaurant and be like, "Where's this from?" And they'd be like, "I just joined yesterday." I have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, that is true. That's true. Curse of the designer, but it is.
Yeah.
Shiam, this has been a really, really fun episode. Needless to say, I feel like we will have you on again in the future.
Okay.
And you can share with us new insights to the world of interior design. Until that time, on behalf of the show, I'd like to thank you for coming on, giving us your time. Time is the one thing which, is of essence to everyone. And the show is only possible because of designers like yourself coming on, sharing your insights, sharing your thoughts, and in my opinion, elevating us as an entire design ecosystem by all this information that we all now know. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really insightful for me too. I've seen things in different perspectives now after this conversation. And really, I really enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And for the rest of you guys, we will catch you guys next week. Fellow aFormer, thank you so much for your time. If this episode added any value to you, please share it with anyone who may benefit. If you want to carry on the discussion, please get in touch with us over socials. We are at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aform.studio on email. That is at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aform.studio on email. Until next time, stay inspired.